Hey guys, welcome to another exciting episode of Footy Banter and Insights. Today we have a special tribute, and I think I'll ask Ishan to lead this tribute.
Firstly, the big news coming in is that Eric Ten Hag has been sacked by Ineos, who has the sporting control over Manchester United. First debate point is, had Ineos not been in picture, I think the entire blame would have gone back to Glazers. Just because Ineos is in picture, I think there's some kind of damage control which is happening, and for the recent uh, results have not gone much in United's favor. I think win against Brentford was a good one. I honestly thought they were the much better team against Brentford, but I saw their performance against West Ham, and I didn't think it was very inspiring, to be honest. Yes, there was a debatable call in terms of penalty, but apart from that, I think uh, Dallo, Bruno, all these guys missed clear chances against Brentford or against West Ham, and they had nobody else to blame but themselves. I think if you are at this club, if you are at Manchester United playing in the Premier League, these chances you just can't miss. In the first half, I saw Dallo miss a simple ball. Same with Bruno. I honestly think they were really bad yesterday. Sorry, on Sunday. But Eric Ten Hag, according to me, as for a United fan, I believe it was the right move to sack him. I think United fans should be happy, and although the investment made in him was huge, like they gave this was his third season, almost 500 million pounds in transfer spend, but there's always that sunk cost wherein you just can't extend it too much, right? Like for example, I don't think United are in the top four race this season, and things could have been much worse had this move not taken place. And there's no guarantee that it will do wonders, but I don't think personally that Eric Ten Hag was the right manager for United. After the Fenerbahce game, he comes out and says that an away game at Porto or Fenerbahce, it's a decent result. It's like you can't be at Manchester United and say that you drew against Porto and Fenerbahce, like right, like it's baffling to see to accept that you are okay with a draw. Right? I think he was just wanting some peace for himself, that he came out and backed himself, but you just can't come out and say it was okay to draw against Fenerbahce. And again, their record in European football was as worse as it can get, and even in Premier League, 14th is not good enough after 9 games, and you just can't keep blaming luck. Like this has been 9 games, like right, like 9 games is a lot of games, and uh, and the other cups and European games are different. But 9 games, you can't just keep blaming the luck and the referee decisions and something like that. Like it just can't happen. I don't know where the goals are coming from in the United game. Like goal scoring was the main issue. Last year the defense was the issue. This year the goal scoring is the issue. So I don't know how many, like they are apparently creating many chances, but after seeing uh, Bruno and Dallo miss those opportunities in the match against West Ham, that summarized the game, that summarized the season for United. And honestly, sacking him was the right decision as per me. And I'm shocked that some Man United fans are upset with it. Like how much worse will you allow things to happen than to मतलब और कितना ही खराब हो सकता था. There was I don't know, like 1 or 2 losses, you want to give him more chances for like 2 3 games and lose two more games, like 14th, and winning like only one game in the last I think 10 plus games in European competitions is just not enough. Like I honestly think it was the right move.
Rahul, what do you
Personally, I
think?
think it's a big loss for the league. I think
Yeah.
every single club, every single manager, every single fan would have hoped for Ten Hag to stay for a little bit longer,
League
and
just got more competitive.
unfortunately, it got extremely competitive. But on the subject of Ineos, like you mentioned, I think the difference between Glazers and Ineos is Ineos have actually confirmed uh, terms with Ruben Amorim already. So I think this has been going on in the back end for a while. It's not something which is
Of course, of
just come
course.
in. And
Of
if you
course.
look at it from a moving pieces kind of a jigsaw, so Hugo Viana leaves Sporting, goes to Man City, becomes their sporting director. There is a good chance that Pep Guardiola leaves at the end of this season. Ruben Amorim would be the next coach likely to be linked to City.
Yeah.
They have acted in a timely manner, gotten in ahead of their rivals, and they are signing one of the most promising young managers in Europe right now. This is a manager who even Liverpool were linked to before Slot. So I think
Yes.
there is a lot of potency behind this move. And another caveat is that apart from Haaland, the striker with the best goals ratio amongst the Europe's top five leagues is Gyökeres, who has
Yes.
worked with Amorim consistently. So there's a good chance that he comes to United and solves the goal scoring issues. So I think it's a great signing for them. It's a good mark of intent. And it's also a sign which says that, yeah, we are not going to tolerate bad results, right? We're going to give time, but we are not going to tolerate bad results.
But two
Yeah, so
things, Yui. First,
before we deep dive into Amorim and his appointment at United, Rahul, what do you think about Ten Hag being sacked?
I believe it was the correct decision.
yeah.
Uh, I am pretty surprised by the way Manan feels about it. Uh, as a United
So does your
fan,
brother. So does your brother.
so
How
does my
are
brother.
you
Agree.
like upset with it? I just can't get it. How can you be upset? Like
I,
Manan was the first one after Tottenham game. He comes out and says we should sack Ten Hag, and now suddenly what changed? I don't know. But now he wants them to give him time. Like what? इससे खराब क्या हो सकता था?
I think he's been spending too much of time with Outani. It's showing now.
Yeah, exactly.
honestly, till the Crystal Palace match, I was pretty satisfied with the season. The season was going decently well. At least the performances were there. There was some hope. There was some style of play. But post that, the Tottenham game happened. The Tottenham game happened, and then Ten Hag just left it out completely and reverted back to his old tactics where Evans, Casemiro, Ericsson came back in. We were not going for the high press. Again, a little bit of a low block, trying for a draw. This is not a future which we were sold on, right? This is the third year where we were supposed to see a vision. In the next 2 years, we have to compete with City and Arsenal. Ericsson, Casemiro, and Evans will not help us with that, right? You have to be a little bit braver and you have to take some risk if you want to stay at this club, which I really believe that was not happening. So I don't think so. There was any doubt that it is a good decision. I
Yes.
believe the decision was taken in the international break that okay, we have to move on. There were obviously background discussions with quite a few managers, and that is why they have been able to quickly close on the next manager. So it was just not on this result. This is my belief that it was already decided that okay, this is not
Correct.
working. We should move on, and they already lined up someone and then pressed the trigger.
Two things. I read two reports. First was that they were discussing Enzo Maresca during the summer, apparently. But when Chelsea got to know about it, Chelsea obviously were faster in the negotiations and we got the Enzo Maresca deal done. Secondly, Ruben Amorim was linked to West Ham, not even Liverpool. Liverpool was much later. First, he was linked to West Ham. He came down to London for the interview, and then that was the biggest issue that was created. If you remember, he came out and apologized to the Sporting fans that he should not have done that. So somehow it didn't work out with West Ham, but West Ham were the first team who was seriously considering Ruben Amorim.
Look at the irony of the
So,
situation. Now, because of
Yeah.
West Ham, he's got a job at United.
just to kind of deep dive into the situation of Ten Hag at United. Given that before Ten Hag as well, there have been managers like you can see under Mourinho, you can see under Ole during the end of his period as well. Do you think there is a systemic issue in the background, and it's not just the manager, but somehow the player culture at the club where they are like downing tools and kind of not actually kind of giving their all for the manager? I don't understand because this has now been a very like a repeated trend that's happened, right? And you saw that at the end of Van Gaal's tenure, you saw that at the end of Mourinho's tenure, players just kind of downing tools, right? And then as soon as a new manager comes in, you see a completely different team, right? Same players, but playing completely different, chalk and cheese, right? And I'm sure this will happen now as well. Kind of a thing. Now that Ten Hag is gone, you'll see the players performing to their best, kind of a thing, and like kind of playing really well, looking like superstars. Do you think like there is something bigger? There are like player coalitions happening at the back, or player groups at the back, kind of causing a situation where eventually, no matter who the manager is, they are kind of doomed to fail.
See, I believe everywhere, whenever a manager leaves, the new manager bounces there. There is a reason why the old manager is not working. Something is not clicking between him and the players. Something is not clicking in the strategy. That is why the manager leaves. And once the new manager comes, there is a new manager bounce. Historically, if you'll see, I don't believe probably one or two players. More than that, I don't think so. Anyone has lasted over from Solskjaer. I think so. We don't have majority of the Mourinho signings. Anyone, probably one or two, would be left right now. So we cannot say that the trend is following in that phase. I think so. Definitely, the biggest problem is the background structure, which was not present across the board. Ten Hag, even though he at the end of it had some kind of structure around it, but he already was damaged goods by then. Any mistake by him would be more scrutinized, because already there was a legacy to him for 2 years where there was some disappointment with majority of the fans. So he was at a very he had a very impossible job kind of a thing. Without the structure, the problem used to happen that the players the new manager wants, and there are certain players he wants to let go. That needs to happen, right? If Arteta wants an Aubameyang to go for free, the board has to support him. Hopefully, Ineos provides the structure to the next manager, and then we can see some progress.
But Rahul, by
So
that
I
backing was
was
given to Ten Hag big time during the summer. He got all his signings that he wanted.
This summer, this summer signing, I have already always, according to me, reiterated that this is Ineos' summer. I don't think so. This was Ten Hag summer, and I think so. Ugarte is a clear example. You can see that he's not starting him at all.
Uh,
Ugarte has hardly played, even though he was our big signing this season, right? He is the biggest signing which we made, and he has not played yet. So there was a clear.
Lenny Euro is the biggest, but like
Lenny Oro
unfortunately,
is injured currently, so we cannot consider.
yeah.
So
But
Rahul. I was talking about players like sorry. So I was talking about players like Rashford, where you see Rashford, he's basically like he's kind of he just gives up on a manager. I feel for some reason like he just goes into his zone where he's just playing for the sake of playing, and kind of his performance levels drop so much, right? You can see that with players like I don't know. Again, I don't know why this is happening, but someone like Bruno also, this at the end of Ten Hag's tenure, has been like so below power. So like it's like these players are just not performing up to their level. Like how much of it
Rashford
can
has
you
been
put on?
under so many managers by now. Like, do
Exactly,
you
that's what I'm saying. Like
Rahul, bhai, do you think
so,
Rashford is a Man United player? Like, do you see him as a
100%,
consistent?
100%, 100%.
Yeah, we are not talking about the upside. Like, we are not talking about the potential always, right? Like, there has to be some consistency in place. He has been there since Mourinho's time. How many years he's been there, and how many times he has, well, how many seasons he has performed to his potential. We consistently, he is been an underperformer,
See, I
leaving out.
believe
So someone like Luke Shaw, right? Even Mourinho pointed out. Now there'll be a lot of players who'll be like Luke Shaw is so good, so great. Like, but you can see why some managers actually pinpoint and kind of call out some players, or like some bad apples in the team that are kind of dragging the entire core down, right? And that's identifying those players and getting rid of those players is much more important than changing the managers. I feel so. I'm nowhere trying to kind of be like Ten Hag should have stayed or he shouldn't have been sacked. Of course, he did a miserable job, but I think at some level there has to be a cleanup where the players need to be identified that are now not good in terms of the atmosphere, right? In
see,
terms of like motivation backing the manager, and unless those apples are removed, see, it's contagious, right? One rotten apple is going to ruin other players as well, kind of a thing, and that ends up being like a systemic issue then across a lot of players.
If
I'll give you a classic. Sorry. Rahul, go ahead.
if there was
I think let Rahul answer.
a situation like that where suppose Rashford was not performing to his best, the manager is the best one to know, right, that the player is not at his 100% or the for whatever reason he is not playing at his best. I don't think so. Rashford was dropped anytime for the last 4 5 matches. Even though Ahmad was sitting right there, he had a decent start of the season. He could have easily replaced him with Ahmad. So I don't think that Rashford downed his tools or anything, especially this time. I don't think so. Even Bruno downed his tools. Majority of the players were not playing up to their potential. Hardly any player in the last 3 4 5 matches have played anywhere close to what they are capable of. So there is obviously some issue, probably with the tactics. Even like Ishan pointed out that we have created quite a few chances, and we have missed majority of them. Surprisingly, two of our most clinical finishers or two of our prolific scorers, probably Hoyland and Rashford. Hoyland maybe because of injury, but still they've only missed one big chances over the period of this full season. So the chances are not falling to the right persons. So ideally, the setup is also not made in such a way that the right person is there where the ball finishes, right? So that also has to be adapted to. Rashford has had zero shots in probably 6 to 8 matches this season, and he is our most prolific scorer. He is the one who has an history of scoring 20 goals. I don't think so anyone else has that. So keeping him away from the shooting range, keeping him away and trying to make him a more creative outlet probably was not the right thing.
I don't think that should be considered as a young player now. Like the amount of game time and the amount of games that he
Young
has
player,
had.
किसने बोला? I said prolific player.
Yeah, but young player, as in like he should be. He has played under so many managers, so many different tactics. I don't think he has done justice to his potential at all. So, like personally, I don't believe that if Manchester United has to be, if Manchester United is a top two or top three team, I don't see Rashford being a part of it now. Like he's not a consistent player. He'll give you one season 20 goals, okay, but you need consistent players, and you can't just back him because once he had scored 20 goals. Like that can't
let's
happen.
uh, let's look at the discussion first from a Ten Hag perspective. So one simple question is: was Ten Hag given enough time to implement his ideas? Second, was he given the right structure to bring in the signings that he wants? And three, were those signings up to the mark? So I think for the first question, Rahul has said, given that this is his third season, there was no clear identity still. I think in terms of time, I don't think it it was a factor. I think Varun and Ishan would also agree with that statement.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He was
With
given enough time. Yeah, yeah, totally.
with regard to the second point, wherein was he given enough resources and did the structure back him? I'll just ask one question, or I'll just give one statement, wherein how Arteta got rid of Aubameyang. Similarly, Ten Hag got rid of Sancho. He let him go out of the first team. He let him go on loan to Dortmund. He tried to integrate him back into the squad earlier this season. It did not work, and he allowed him to go to Chelsea at a
Ronaldo.
reasonable fee. Ronaldo again. So he was backed by the structure as well. But again, I will leave this second point again to Rahul and others to kind of comment on that.
There was a backing. I'm not saying that it was like if you'll say, but the problem arises like probably last season we were looking to release Maguire and McTominay and sign replacements. But for some reason it could not be done. We did not accept a West Ham bid. So that is where the problem is. If there are certain players that he deems to be surplus, or the board deems to be surplus, you have to remove them and replace them. Otherwise, the deadwood keeps on accumulating and keeps on accumulating, and then it becomes a problem because then those players are part of your squad. You have to keep them happy. You play them some matches. If they perform well, then you stay in the team. And it's just they were never of United level. They were never of the level which we wanted to be. So that is where the structure comes in, and that is where hopefully this new structure will help us Move away from the wrong players quickly and get in the right players. Moving away from the wrong players is also very important.
See, I feel the problem that Ten Hag had, I think he was given enough leeway, enough freedom, or enough backing. The problem that Ten Hag had, which was unlike Arteta, is the players that he got in were also of a very substandard quality, right? So if you're spending 500 million, the players that you get in, if they are adequate in terms of quality to replace the existing players or the players that you want to sideline, then it makes sense, right? Then kind of you can see an improvement. But if you get players like Anthony, correct, who are kind of not up to the mark, right? So it will obviously kind of not kind of work well for you, right? Eventually, on one end you will kind of sideline a few players, you'll remove Sancho, you'll remove other players like Ronaldo and all that, but then you have to back it up by getting your players that you really believe that work in the team and make sure those players, at least the hit rate is like 75%, on those signings. But I think the hit rate for Ten Hag was way below that, right?
See,
So
I
I think
believe,
that compounded the problem.
yeah, I believe Ten Hag was given too much power. I don't think so. A manager should be given this much power. Manager is not someone who has the brains to get the data and get the right people in. It was like quite a few decisions were matlab, decided by him, which should not have happened. It is the structure who should be taking the final call. That is where the problem came through.
So
I
I'll
think
just go through a quick list and I'll go through it very fast. And I'd like you to say your views in a very like a rapid fire format. Ki which signings from Ten Hag were actually hit, miss, or have the potential to be a hit going forward. So Ugarte,
Potential to be a hit.
potential
Delit,
I believe potential to
uh,
be a hit.
mess for me.
Miss for me.
Mazraoui,
A good
Good
bargain,
potential. Yeah,
value for money,
Backup
yeah,
player, yeah.
Lenny Yoro,
big
good
yes,
potential.
Potential.
Zirkzee,
decent potential.
Yeah, potential. I also believe.
Hoyland,
Uh,
I think so. He'll have a big year this season.
Better than Xerxes.
Onana,
Good. I think it. For me, Onana was the best signing above Martinez also. Like, I think Onana has made look like he out of like had Onana not been there, I think this would have happened much earlier. I think Onana has been their best player this season.
I would say his shot stopping is extremely poor. I
It's,
think
he's a little unconventional. It's not that poor actually. If you see the stats and all, he saves quite a bit more than what is
You
expected.
should see his double saves than all that he has made this season. It's crazy. Like somehow he has that he has that wild quality where he can produce some outstanding moments.
And if Dalot could finish, he probably would have one or two assists also. I think so. Two or three times he is.
He's good at build up also. I honestly think he's a good signing.
so. If you have played Football Manager, right, there's this thing called eccentricity, a character
Yeah,
which you
yeah.
judge the player by. Now or a quality which a player can suddenly do something which is extraordinary, kind of
Yeah.
a thing. In a striker or a midfielder, attacking midfielder, you would want this quality to be very high, correct? In a goalkeeper, you would want this quality to be extremely low, correct?
Not necessarily.
You don't want see you don't want the keeper to make stupid errors. That is the basic, correct? I would be okay with a keeper which is doing 8 on 10 consistently, right? Rather than letting easy chances slip through his hand, or like giving away easy goals, doing a lot of unforced errors with the ball on his feet. So I think that percentage for Onana is very high, right? And that's
Also,
why
you should count his like the central defenders that he's having in front of him. Like if Raya and Saliba are out of Arsenal's team, Saliba and Gabriel are out of this team. Even
I,
David Raya is not going to
I
be
will
scorer.
I will ask you a simple question. Would Man City, Liverpool, or Arsenal take Onana as their keeper over the current existing choice that they have? The answer is a clear
I
no.
I
right?
don't think so. It's
Yes,
like
Arsenal would. I wouldn't take. I would rather have Ramsdale over Onana, which we have already sold. Raya is much better. I don't think Onana is better than Allison or Kelleher. I don't think Onana is better than Ederson. So why are you saying Onana is that good? He's not that good.
because
So
he's not proven in
and
your system. That's why you have to discount the defenders playing ahead of him, the entire system. There are too many variables. If Raya plays in United, do you think he'll be that good?
just go back
Let
and
me
see
ask
his
you a reverse
bloopers.
question.
Just
I
go
ask
back
you a
and
reverse question. Raya or Allison or Ederson plays in United, do you think they'll perform at the same level?
I think they'll be much better than Onana.
Then we have something
And
to
I
discuss.
honestly think they are much better than Onana. Correct. And I think it's a big gulf in quality, according to me. So
Okay.
I mean, my personal view would be like I'm not a big fan of Onana just because of the fact that if I am a defender and if I see Onana behind me, I am not confident. Correct. I feel there's a mistake waiting to happen behind me, and that keeps the defenders on the edge and not kind of calm and secure. That feeling that you get, okay, like when Peter Cech had was in the goal for Chelsea, right? Like Terry knew, okay, if something happens, Cech is always there. So like when like Jens Lehmann was there for Arsenal, or like like probably De Gea was there for United at some point, or come on, man, like how can you compare Onana to some of the great keepers, man? Like I think he's way below quality. I I I, I think Ten Hag just going for the fact that he wanted someone good with the ball on his feet. He overcompensated and just ignored the shot stopping quality of Onana. According to me. So, but that's just my personal view. So yeah, I would do a miss on Onana.
Move to the next one. So Anthony,
Big
Answer.
miss. Big miss.
worst, worst, I think, signing so far.
Casemiro.
I think miss.
Miss.
I, I would have to give it a. You cannot give it a miss, I think. So it has to be a hit because the first season it was due to him that we qualified for the Champions League. So whatever the cost was, right, we had recovered quite a bit of it. And we always knew it was a short-term deal. It was never a long-term deal.
Lisandro Martinez.
So good.
Good
How
and
many years of
potential
contract does
potential is good.
Casemiro have, Rahul bhai?
Hmm?
कितने साल का contract है Casemiro
4
का?
years. 4 years. One more year.
So it can't be short term, right? Like
It was a short
4 years
term.
is a long
That
term.
is a structural problem. See, thoda bahut, but if even if we got out one season out of him where he was very good that season. So it cannot. I would not say a hit also, but it's a neutral thing. I will say that okay.
I think Eriksen was a
So
silent
Castle,
short-term solution, but Casemiro was brought in as like he will be able to sustain the level for a longer time than what you really think 1 or 2 seasons. I think he was just
so
30 when he.
Casemiro is a prime example of how Ten Hag failed to get the most out of his
Yeah,
signings, according
yeah,
to me.
yeah.
So I think Casemiro could have given United much more than what he has given. So yeah, even not just I'm just even as a mentor, right? Like coming back with his experience of winning Champions League, winning so much with Real Madrid, like guiding the youngsters, or like all of those things off the like Milner was such a huge impact at Liverpool when Klopp
Trent.
came in, right? Like exactly. So I think some Casemiro could have kind of. So this is where managers' ability to work with players and getting the best out of them makes so much of a difference, right? So I think that's Casemiro. I think Ten Hag failed Casemiro, according to me,
I
rather
think
than the
Tony
other way
Kroos and
around.
Valverde is the best example, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. So yeah,
So that's the major list, and then you have Malasia, which I think
He's been missing.
not too many games. Yeah.
so you can see, right, not too many hits in the list. So this is the problem. You want to sideline existing players that you have inherited, and compounded by the fact that your signings are not that great, or you are not able to get
Rahul
the best
bhai,
out
the
of them.
correlation is like hits and the manager staying there. There's a high correlation, and Not many hits
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
and manager being sacked is a big correlation again. So,
But
exactly.
the decision should not be based on the manager. That is the problem. If you have a structure in, I think so. Even in Arsenal, Arteta is not the one going out and signing the players. He's being presented with few options which the team has walked around, and then they go across and do a deal. And secondly, the most important thing is what value you crack the deal on. Even if you get the right player and the right profile, if you overpay for him, then it adds undue pressure on him for no reason. Like an
hmm,
Anthony, if you would have bought him for 50 million, 40 million, which he was available at the start of the season, it could have been that the chances of success would have been much higher than when we went ahead and spent around 80, 100 million on. Similar for Hoyland. We overspent for majority of the players, which adds undue pressure on them, which adds more media scrutiny on them, which makes it more difficult for them to succeed.
agree.
Um, to some extent, I would agree with you, but to some extent, not as well. Because if you see someone like Declan Rice, like we paid 100 million kind of a thing for him, but for some reason we've been able to utilize him so well, right, in that kind of a role. Another
We don't
example that pops
Declan
in my
Rice
head
with
is,
Anthony Varun.
no,
Declan
no,
Rice was
I'm see,
worth 100 million. It was
no,
not
I'm
like
just saying,
50 million
I'm
player for
just
100
saying,
million.
we are talking about the price tag putting pressure on the player, right? I'm not comparing the worth right now. I'm just saying the fact that how you deal with players is also very important. Correct. I'll give you another example. Ben White for 45 million at that point was seemed to be very high. So again, like Ben White again has performed really well, irrespective of his price tag. Havertz at 67 or whatever million was actually very high, correct? But he hasn't been a complete super flop, right? So there is price tag, there is pressure of price tag, but it's also about how manager eventually fits the player in the team, correct? Or
But
kind of making sure that you are identifying the right qualities in the players to fit you in the team, kind of a thing. Which, of course, coming back to your point, which is some back work that needs to be done by the backroom team or the sporting
Rahul
director
bhai,
who's there.
if the manager allows the players to perform at a good level, we will never talk about being overvalued, right?
But
Yeah,
the thing
For
is, you need
example,
to one sec.
Declan Rice.
We are talking about Declan Rice. We're talking about Havertz. We're talking about Ben White is a separate example, but it's again 40, 45 million, not 60, 70 million. Where Havertz or a Declan Rice were there. They're already proven international players. They had played international games. They have a bit of an experience where it is easier probably from them to adapt. Especially for Havertz and Declan Rice, they are Premier League proven. They had played Premier League for around 2, 3 seasons, maybe even more for Declan Rice. Separately, when you come to an Anthony, to an Hoyland, Hoyland had hardly played for Atlanta, and we paid around 70, 75 million for him. So asking him to come and lead for Manchester United, the pressure is going to be much higher for him. Expecting an inexperienced player to get that price tag and then compete, I'm not saying it's an impossible task. It just makes it tougher. It just makes it tougher for a person to succeed, and that is where the team has to make more sense. Like a Xerxes, even if he takes a little bit of time, he will not have that much of pressure because that is just a 35, 40 million deal rather than a 70, 80 million deal.
I think the right correlation would be Arsenal signing Pepe for 73. Because at 73, you look at his stats and you're like, no way. You look at his gameplay, you look, no way. You look at YouTube highlights and you're like, okay, fine. He scored a couple of great goals or made some great moments. But I think overall, it wasn't the best structural signing. Similarly, I think Anthony, he was available in the summer for 40. They took time. They went for other targets. They came back and the price kept on going up. And then they didn't have an option but to kind of close with him. But let's move on to the more exciting subject now from a United fans perspective. Uh, I have just read a report saying that Fabrizio Romano has confirmed that terms have been agreed with Ruben Amorim. And when Romano gives his here we go, it seems to be done mostly. So I think let's assume that Ruben Amorim is on his way to United. And let's start with Rahul and ask him to share his feedback on Ruben Amorim.
I think the Sporting has given a statement out, right, that United are ready to pay the release clause. The official statement is out. So hopefully the deal is done. It is definitely exciting. Probably uh, would have been my second choice, but the first choice I don't think so is would be available, which will be Nagelsmann for me, ideally. So I am pretty happy with it. I rather like us going for a younger manager, younger profile, rather than a Tuchel or someone who I just don't get excited for. I was not excited for Tuchel. I didn't see that. I could not see him building a dynasty for us. This guy has the swagger, has the character, and ideally, if he sticks to his principles and is supported by the structure, hopefully we can create a good decade of dominance. Ideally,
5 years.
I don't think
obviously,
we have Manan on call to discuss 5 years right
it's
now.
too early. It's too early to make any comments, but it is an exciting thing. The thing I like about it most is like how prepared Ineos was. It was
Yeah.
a good structural decision that okay, once they moved on, immediately the next manager comes in. Secondly, historically, if you see any Man United signing or sacking or anything, it used to run around in the news. Like there used to be some leaks, some rumors, okay, this is going to happen that day, this is going to happen this day. This time, everything is like, dang, on-stream tweets. Next time, immediately there is a Man United release, okay, he's sacked. And it's only the tidbits are not getting out, which is a good thing for a structural point of view, which I like it a lot.
So, a couple of interesting points on this signing. We have Bruno, who was a sporting player but not worked under Amorim. And we have Ugarte, who was a big signing this window, who came from PSG, but he had actually built his reputation at Sporting. So if you look at the Portuguese manager and if you look at the way he kind of organizes his teams, I think both Bruno as well as Ugarte would be key components of this team. And you look at, I think one of the best things about Amorim is that he's able to replace superstars and he's able to get young players in and build a system around them. So I think in a way it's really good for United.
So, couple of points, right? So you saw that with Glazers when they sacked Mourinho, they got Ole as an interim, and then because they didn't appoint that new manager immediately, Ole got the momentum behind him, and then eventually under fan pressure, they had to make him like a permanent manager. The good thing that Ineos has done right now is immediately after sacking Ten Hag, they have appointed a new manager. And I think that's a big change in the way they are running the club right now. Right? It's a great instead of leaving it to Van Nistelrooy for a few games and then probably you get that player bounce or a performance bounce that you get. Like I was thinking that probably the same thing might happen, right? Where players now start performing well for like the next 7 games, and the fans go, "Oh wow, Van Nistelrooy, our fan favorite. Now let's make him the permanent manager," kind of a thing. Like you never know. Like these things happen a lot with a lot of fan like a team like United that have a big fan culture going around, right? So I think that was from a United perspective a very different thing that which I wasn't expecting, but great what Ineos has done. The second
I
thing we
heard
have
he's
to
going to be.
sorry, Ishan, yeah, go ahead.
I heard he's going to be back for the Chelsea game. Like Ruben Amorim
Okay.
is going to be available for the Chelsea game itself. So it's going to be a very fast change. But don't you think, Rahul, bhai, this could have happened during the international break? Like a manager would have had some time, a couple of weeks with the team, and then maybe could have come on board.
Yeah, probably there was some discussions and probably some convincing needed, some agreement to be closed around because I believe uh, this international break only Bruno spoke about him, Amorim,
Yeah,
quite a bit
yeah.
during the Portuguese. So they would probably there are rumors that the discussions were on during the week, the international break, and the team had went and met him. The team means Dan Ashworth and everyone met him. So probably the background was laid and there were certain discussions, certain final points which were left, and probably they were considering one or two more options maybe, and then they finally figured out and zoned in on him.
So another important point to look at is that when you are hiring a manager like Amorim, right, he should be given the liberty to sign the backroom staff that he wants to have. correct? Now we will have to see whether Ineos sticks with the likes of Nishtal Roy and other coaches and all of those things, right? Because if that is the case, Amorim is not just coming in the team coaching the players; he's also coaching his backroom staff, which he's not dealt with before, right? So if you see someone like Emery coming at Aston Villa, he had the complete liberty of getting his assistant manager, his other coaches that he wanted. Look at Arteta. Arteta has a complete freedom of getting his people in to work with him. And I think it'll be very important to see how they deal with this situation in the with the support staff now. So let's see. I, I mean, it'll be prudent for them to give Amorim the free hand to kind of select what assistant coaches he wants, what like defensive coach, attacking coach he wants to kind of get in, what fitness people he wants to get in, fitness staff, physios, etc., etc. Right? Like, so let's see. I think that would be the correct way to go about it, according to me. So probably it could be bye bye Nistelrooy as well if
I
common sense
think
prevails.
I think in general, most managers would have their backroom staff come along with them. Only criteria, like I can give specific examples of Chelsea, wherein what the Chelsea structure used to do is they used to have one man of their own be part of that structure, so that in case there are things which are going in a different direction, he is kind of involved and he is kind of updating the hierarchy or the management. So I think from that point of view, because I think Van Nistelrooy has left a managerial role at PSV to join a second coach role at United. I think they must have offered him something along the lines here, you are our man for the longer term. So why don't you become part of the project irrespective of the manager? I think that can be one. And of course, the entire backroom staff will be Ruben Amorim's, and he will have a chance to kind of integrate one person or two people from the United squad into his ranks. But completely, to I don't think like the structure will give him complete freedom.
Let's see. Let's see. I mean,
I
otherwise
think
you'll
there's
always have
also
that mole in the thing, always reporting back to the this thing, right? I think I don't
I
know.
think so that is common across, and I think so it makes sense. You need to have a structure in where one person is there. It might be Van Nistelrooy, it might be someone else. I don't know, but there has to be one person who is there consistently, who can create the culture which we the owners want, right?
I'll give you a
no,
ridiculous example of Chelsea. Chelsea had a third choice keeper called Hilario under Mourinho. Since, like, I don't think he played more than 15 first team games over 5 years. After he retired, he became the goalkeeper coach. Presently, Chelsea have four goalkeepers coaching, and he's still there at the club. And he's always been there for about a decade, despite the fact that the owners have changed. So he is someone who kind of is part of that backroom structure, and he just like carries on. Similarly, when Ancelotti had joined, Ancelotti got his entire backroom staff, but he had got one assistant from Chelsea to kind of be there. So normally, I think it's always a combination wherein you want to give a free hand, but keep a little bit of. Uh, I would not say mole is the right word. You kind of want someone trusted to be there.
Fair
I
enough.
think talking about the culture, the biggest difference someone has created is Hansi Flick at Barcelona. Nobody saw these kind of performances coming in, considering like how like Xavi's reign ended last season. Everyone's shoulders had dropped. I think Hansi Flick, more than the playing style, I think he's known more for how different the culture has been at Barcelona now. So I think that's first, like that's required at United primarily, and then obviously playing style and all will uh, come into the picture later. But how Hansi Flick has transformed Barcelona from last season to this season, players like Rafinha, like you see them how underconfident they were with Xavi, and now how they're performing right now. It's a big like these kind of confidence and all these comes from cultural changes, and I think United needs one person. Like I heard Rio Ferdinand, like one of his reels saying that Paul Pogba and Jesse Lingard were dancing on Instagram when they lost a 4-0 match to someone, and that kind of culture. And then he called up Wayne Rooney and told him that, "Wow, how is this happening when you are there?" And then Wayne Rooney said that, "I can't help it right now. Like, if I say anything, I'll be considered as a mad person." So that's how things are. So these kind of cultural changes, you need more leaders. You need to play with responsibility. You need to how to behave. And I think Hansi Flick is a great example as of now on how to build a good culture and how results follow after that.
The
Just
Pogba has
one point.
refuted that.
Sorry.
Pogba has refuted that. That has not happened
Pogba did
publicly.
refute that. Yeah, Pogba did refute that. But
Just one point on this, that right now we mentioned all these signings. What if Amorim comes in and Anthony becomes world class, or Casemiro
could
gets his
happen.
mojo back? So it's just going to be a really interesting time to look at how the existing players kind of look at the new structure, right?
I feel that's what I was saying about United team, right? Like I feel after the new manager comes in, all of them look like superstars. It has happened under Solskjaer. I mean, I won't be surprised if it happens right now.
Rashford was one of them.
And
Rashford was the superstar in
Rashford,
10
yeah,
first season.
yeah, he was superstar for Solskjaer when that 6 months period on the run that they went, and when United fans went Ole's on the wheel kind of a thing. All of these players were like superstars basically. So I won't be surprised if that happens now as well. Let's see.
unfortunately, it's Chelsea next. The new manager bounce will come heavily on us.
See, one more thing. I think so United currently have a very good youth team also. Under 18 team is performing extremely well, and we have added well this summer also. So
Yeah.
getting in a manager who is prone to give the young team, youth team a chance and probably integrate the academy well into the team probably is good, because if we have the ingredients, if used properly, ideally we can create a good squad.
Honestly, I was hoping that Amorim would go to Man City because see that was as you said, right, that was a telltale sign, right? They did with Pep, right? They hired the sporting director, and then later Pep joined. I was actually hoping that Hugo Viana comes to Man City, and then Amorim joins Man
If he'll be
City.
a good coach, then it's okay that he goes to United, right?
No, I'm not saying from that point of view. I was saying from a point of view of now they don't have Amorim to replace Pep, and now they might just look at Arteta to come in.
No,
That
no,
won't be like
I don't see
no.
Arteta leaving for any other Premier League team for sure. I think the only other person that they can now go back to is Jabi Alonso, and I think they can convince Jabi Alonso to kind of work with the new sporting director if it's possible. I think that can be something which can be interesting.
I see Xabi Alonso at Madrid or Liverpool. I, for some reason,
I
don't see
think
him
I
with
think
Man City.
Liverpool is done. Yeah, like I think the way Slot has kind of come in, they will give him time. I don't think even if he goes through a run of very bad games, they are not going to remove him at the end of this season for sure. And
No,
Madrid, of
in just the
course,
type of
yeah.
profile of manager he is.
Uh,
Like I would love. I can see him fit at Liverpool, given that he
mm.
has played for Liverpool as well. That emotional connect is there. But I
Imagine
thought it would more be like Madrid or Liverpool. But let's see.
Florian Wirtz and Xabi Alonso to City. I think that's my prediction for the next season.
Yeah, I think Guardiola seems to be having one foot
KDB
out the
and
door
Guardiola
right
leave,
now.
Florian Wirtz and Xabi Alonso come in. That's my prediction.
Mm.
One more point, I think so Michael Oliver would be thanking that Ten Hag is sacked. No one that decision is being taken out of spotlight, because I have not seen a worse. What kind of decision was that? God knows.
Taken away from
The,
spotlight.
I'm telling you, these referees are so bad. They are so bad. I mean, at some level, at some level, they have forgotten the meaning of clear and obvious as well. Right? Like it's so.
There's a show on Sky Sports that Ref Watch. Dermot Gallagher, he comes in.
Yeah.
He always defends the referee, right? Even
Always,
if there was a
irrespective
goal
of
in
what
this
it is. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Can you imagine? He said that it was not a penalty. Just imagine. And in that situation, a VAR is intervening and saying that give a penalty.
Yeah, that was
And
stupid.
the ref watch is saying that it's not penalty. It was such a stupid decision. I cannot believe what is happening.
See, this is where we were talking, right, Rahul, that somehow these refs should be kind of held responsible or should be answerable to their fuck ups that they do and kind of the bad decisions that they make, right? Unless you make them answerable, this is not going to improve the situation. So
I think unfortunately or fortunately for United, sometimes a short-term loss is a long-term win. And I think you guys got it at the right time.
But I believe, see, the decision was going to happen. Probably, probably post Chelsea would have happened. But I
yeah, I
don't
think they
think.
were just waiting for a bad game to happen for him to be for to make it like public.
Yeah, or
Because
probably they were just
the
waiting for agreement to be done. Because the discussions were happening, right? Discussions were happening means the decision was made, or they had an inkling that okay, we had to go this.
and as Rahul said, right, the speed with which the new signing has come about, I mean, it was a written thing basically. So, thank you for watching, everyone. Do let us know your thoughts. Hit the like button, subscribe, and share. See you in the next video.